Welcome back. You're watching AM. It is great to have your company this morning. So, 6:20, it's time to talk to the National Party leader of the opposition, Chris Luxon. At COP27, this is the climate change conference that's going on in Egypt right now. Our government has decided to give, and one of only a handful of governments that has done this, by the way, $20 million. $20 million to developing countries to help them deal with the effects of climate change. The idea is you take from the rich and you give to the poor. Joining us to discuss this morning is Chris Luxon. Morena, good morning. This a good idea, or do you run the risk of opening yourself up to liabilities here?
Well, look, good morning, Ryan. How are you? Trust you're having a good week. Look, from my point of view, I haven't seen the detail of it, but look, we are very supportive of partnering and working with our Pacific Island partners to make sure that we are supporting them as they deal with the effects of climate change. And so it's good to see that over the last few years, and increasingly so going forward, there's going to be more common work between New Zealand and the Pacific Islands around climate mitigation adaptation.
As you say, we have been doing a lot of that work already. Would you prefer that we do that work ourselves, or would you prefer, as the government seems to be indicating, that we put into a fund that we may one day lose control of, that it may not be our decision about whether our money goes to the Pacific, for example?
Yeah, look, I really like the thought that we are working and partnering with the Pacific Island nations. They are our family. They are countries that we have a great relationship with and special friendships with, and I think that's where our focus should be. And I think, as I said, it's started to get more focused around the environment. I think over the coming years it needs to get, really focused on that. So from my perspective, I like the thought of us working much more closely and targeting our support for our Pacific friends and family.
All right, Newshub-Reid Research, they did a word association thing with voters and asked them what they thought of you. I'm going to show our viewers a little glimpse at the moment of some of the words that people use to describe you. Don't know, unknown, average, inexperienced, unsure, smarmy, arrogant was another one. Do you relate to any of those, Chris?
No, I don't actually, but what I'd say is, look, the way I've come through politics has been really fast to become the leader of the National Party, and that's a big thing that people need to get to know me. They're going to do that over the course of the year. It's going to be a big, long job interview, and they'll get a sense of what I'm about. What I'd say is that I come with real-world leadership experience. I come not as a career politician. I will be different, and I think that's a really good thing and what's needed in New Zealand right now.
What do you make of some of the words that the public used to describe your opponent and the Prime Minister? Some of the worst ones were evil, liar, useless, deceitful, dictator.
Well, look, I think Jacinda Ardern, has good intentions. I think the key issue that we've found with her and her government is, it is comprised of all career politicians. They haven't necessarily run things or know how to get things done. And I think that's the real challenge that they're running into now. Essentially, New Zealanders are looking at it and saying, look, there's a lot of spin, but there's no delivery. The economy's going backwards. Our healthcare system's falling apart. Our kids aren't going to school. We've got major challenges with the housing crisis. We've got rising levels of crime. Those are the outcomes that New Zealanders want to see governments improve for them, so that's how they get ahead.
Let's talk about outcomes for corporates, aka profits. I want to know, you have basically this week agreed with the Prime Minister. I've looked at your wording and the wording of your deputy. You basically agree that they're making unjustifiable profits in a cost of living crisis, right?
Well, what we're saying is, look, at a time where there is a massive cost of living crisis, where Kiwis are doing it incredibly tough with rising inflation, rising interest rates, and at the same time you've got large bank profits, that's a really tough thing to see.
But what's large bank profits? And why are you the arbiter of large bank profits?
Well, no, what I'm saying is, what we've been requesting the government to do is, it's all very well to talk about large bank profits, but they need to do something about that. And the thing that they need to do is actually get to the cause of the problem, which is what we've been calling for, an independent inquiry on the actions of the Reserve Bank and the government around its spending, around the printing of money, around the borrowing of money through COVID,
are their profits
and to understand whether that contributed to bank profits,
fine, we can talk
as well as contributed to worsening the cost of living crisis.
We can talk about what contributes to it, but aren't large bank profits a byproduct of the fact that they are large banks?
Well, they are. They're large businesses. They've got large asset bases. They need to have good levels of profitability. It's important. Why? Because as we look out for the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to go through some very, very tough economic times.
So are you
we need our banks to be profitable and strong.
Right. So are you uncomfortable with the profits, or are you not uncomfortable with the profits?
I am uncomfortable. What I'm wanting to understand is I want a proper understanding of whether the New Zealand government's actions actually enlarge those profits.
What gives you
more than they would have been, and because of government printing.
Okay, but why are you concerned about the profits? What exactly about the profits? Is it because it's more than $1 billion? Is it because it's 13% as a return on equity, which, by the way, is middle of the road for NZX-listed companies? What exactly are you uncomfortable about?
Well, what I'm really uncomfortable about is the actions of a government that's spending $1 billion more each and every week.
No, you said you were uncomfortable with the banking profits. Chris, you said you're uncomfortable with the banking profits, and that's what I'm asking you about.
Yeah, so what I'm saying to you is I want to understand how those bank profits are derived and actually whether they benefited from government action around government spending, but also Reserve Bank printing of money. We've been calling for an independent inquiry because we want to understand that for two reasons. One is about the reappointment of a Reserve Bank governor to understand the performance of the Reserve Bank, but also to understand whether the government's actions actually contributed to rising levels of cost of living, inflation, interest rates and bank profits.
Are you uncomfortable with the nearly $500 million profit you turned as Chief of Air New Zealand?
No, I'm very proud of the record at Air New Zealand around commercial success, cultural success and customer success.
What's the difference?
It's about just making sure that we understand whether the government's actions actually contributed to worsening the cost of living and inflating government bank profits.
All right. Chris Luxon, thank you very much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. It has just gone 27 minutes after 6 o'clock. You're watching AM.